Hello everyone and welcome back to this FM17 experiment where we swap the top tier of English football with the bottom tier of English football. Now we have gone 4 years into the future at this point. We're going to go 2 more years into the future now, and we are really starting to see a mix of the non-league and Premier League teams hitting themselves in the middle of the league pyramid. Now today we will see hopefully some of the big teams make it back into the Premier League and see how they get on going forward. Last time out in the Premier League, if we click this little link, you'll see Newcastle won the Premier League yet again. They continue to keep winning that. But the real interesting thing that happened last time out was Manchester City, from the third tier of English football, they finished top of the League One table, but they also managed to qualify for the Champions League because they won the Europa League. So they will be in the Champions League next season whilst also playing in the Championship. Chelsea also joining them in the Championship as well, alongside Rotherham. But there's not too much else to linger on at the moment. It's easier to just go forward a year and then we'll drop down the leagues one by one. So I'll see you in just a second. Well, we are 1 more year into the future and Newcastle are just about still the champions of England, winning it yet again. Now, the league is still holding its own in 4th place ahead of League Newcastle having a good run in Europe. Manchester City also helping with the coefficients after winning the Europa League means that they will hold this position at least for a little while. Norwich finished second, Wolves third, but Eastbourne Borough are establishing themselves as a top 4 team. They finished 5th last season, but 4th this season. They are outperforming the rest of the non-league teams by some way. Chelmsford did well last season, but have dropped down again now. None of them are really challenging for the title at this point. Aston Villa finishing in 9th. And Margate, Weston-super-Mare and Bishop Stratford, 3 more non-league teams getting relegated this season, which means that next season there will only be Welling, Ebbsfleet, Whitehawk, Chelmsford and Eastbourne Borough left. So only 5 of the original 20 non-league teams actually surviving up to this point. If we have a look quickly at the transfers, you'll see Chelsea have signed a couple of Premier League players, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Barry Lloyd from Norwich. Xherdan Shaqiri moving the other way from Liverpool to Weston-super-Mare. But that is interesting because Chelsea, obviously in a league down, have started to take some of these players as the reputations sort of swing in their favour as they rise up the leagues. Newcastle still signing a couple of good players. Ruben Neves, a big signing for them, but they've also managed to pinch Alex Iwobi from Whitehawk. No other major transfers in there to talk about. So let's drop down to the Championship, and here we can see that Manchester City have won the Championship. Chelsea finishing second. Not as big a gap there as I expected though for Chelsea. Just 3 points clear of Bristol City. Fulham also managing to go up. Burton and Dartford both getting relegated. Dartford, the non-league team. Oxford City managing to hold their position, but not able to challenge the top few teams. So I think Oxford are actually the first non-league team to not immediately get relegated. Maidenhead, another one in there. So there are now 2 non-league teams that have held on in the Championship for the first time. Oxford, obviously, for the first team to win the Premier League, so they are finishing the best of the rest. Now, if we go down 1 more league to League One, you can see Tottenham and Arsenal, as expected, have won the league without too much trouble. Nobody else really in here worth looking at. Everybody else sort of where they would expect. Arsenal and Spurs winning it by quite some way. In League 2, we can see that West Ham and Stoke have both gone up as well. They will be going into League One. They've won that by quite some way. No real surprises in there. Blackpool and Stevenage getting relegated from the Football League. In the Vanarama National League, we can see Liverpool and Bournemouth have gone up. Manchester United continue to struggle in this experiment. Now 5 years on, they've only had 1 promotion, which is outrageous for a club with their financial power and the players they've got available. Bournemouth managing to go up. Hull and West Brom in there with Southampton as well, all finishing where you would expect, except for Sunderland. Sunderland have been relegated. They were deducted 10 points for going into administration as well, but that wouldn't have saved them. They were still relegated. What has happened at Sunderland? if we look at their general information, you can see that they've just got too much debt on at the moment. Absolutely outrageous. They've been relegated as a former Premier League team. Their reputation now right down there where a non-league team would expect to be. They've still got some money in the bank though, which will do them a favour, but they are surely shedding all their players now. 8.5 million going out, 9 million going out, 13.5. They still must have some players in their squad. If we have a look at their senior squad, I don't recognise any of these players. So all of their major players have now left, and that is why they are really struggling. They are going back down into the Vanarama National League North, I would expect. Now, in this league, Leicester did win it. No other big teams in there, just Leicester. They've gone up as champions quite comprehensively. And in the Vanarama National League South, the original league, Everton and Watford, the two teams going up. Crystal Palace, Burnley and Swansea, the only teams left down there from the former Premier League group. They're still finishing a good 28 points clear. So no major surprises there. Now, if we head all the way back up the leagues to Newcastle, and have a look at their competitions overview, we will see that the EFL Cup was won by Reading. That's quite interesting. Reading beating Newcastle in the final as they did the year before. Community Shield was won by Newcastle, and the FA Cup also won by Newcastle, beating Manchester United, the non-league team, running all the way to the final, nearly getting into Europe as well, before being beaten by the three-time Premier League champions. Now, in the Champions League group stage, the current title holders are Monaco. I'm interested in this one because obviously Manchester City were back in the competition this time. Going in, I would imagine, at the third qualifying round, possibly even less. Where do the champions enter? Maybe they enter actually through the group stage. Let's have a look at the group stage. As we can see, PSG and... So Newcastle did win their group, winning all 6 games. So they are really coming on as a team. Chelmsford finished bottom of their group, but they managed to get 2 draws in quite a tough group, which is nice to see. And Manchester City did get through the group stage. So if we have a look at the first knockout round, we'll see Newcastle comprehensively beaten by Dortmund, and Manchester City, their dream run ended against Atletico Madrid, so they didn't manage to make it all the way to the final. They will not be in Europe next season. So that was interesting to look at. Let's go forward another year now that the big teams are back in the Premier League and see if they can stop Newcastle's dominance. Well, look at that. Newcastle still retain the Premier League title, clear of Manchester City and Chelsea, who are going to be in Europe next season. They have retaken their positions in the top 4, but they have not been able to stop Newcastle from winning the title yet again. They have now won the Premier League 5 years in a row, Newcastle. This is what I love to see as a Newcastle fan. If we look at their general information, they are valued at £570 million now. If we look at their competition overview, they have won the Premier League now 9 times in all, doing very well as a club. City and Chelsea back where they belong though. If we have a look at the transfer screen, we'll see that the big transfers were to Man City for nearly £98 million on this guy, Angel Imaz, a regen, who looks pretty special to be honest. So they've done a good bit of business there. Chelsea, Man City, Brighton and Man City again taking the top 5 transfer spots. Newcastle bringing in 1 player, not a big surprise. But if we look at the non-league teams, the highest finish was Whitehawk. Eastbourne Borough, the former top 4 team, now finishing 10th. But they are still in the Premier League. Chelmsford also still in there as a team that were qualifying for Europe. Welling in there, but Ebbsfleet now down to just 4 teams from non-league that will be in the Premier League next season after Ebbsfleet got relegated on goal difference. If we drop down to the Championship, we will see the holders are inevitably Arsenal. Spurs still finishing quite clear in 2nd place. Bishop Stratford, one of the non-league teams, getting back up to the Premier League. That's good to see. Relegation for Walsall, Preston and Bradford. Oxford City though and West Ham Supermare maintaining their position. Maidenhead just about on goal difference, staying in the league as well. In League 1, we can see West Ham and Stoke did finish top, as you would expect. Dartford, also another non-league team getting promoted. They are really starting to establish themselves in English League football. None of them getting relegated. Oh, Fleetwood maybe might have been one of them. I don't think so, though. Now, in League 2, if we look at the league table, Liverpool did win the title. Bournemouth second, still just 2 Premier League teams in League 2. Mansfield finishing third, Truro just missing out and going back up to League 1, Gosport as well in 6th place, Hungerford still in there. So the non-league teams are really starting to bottom out in league football. None of them have been relegated back to non-league yet. They are all still holding their position in the Football League. The National League, though, has finally seen Manchester United get promoted back to English League football. They are finally out of non-league. It's only taken them 6 full years to do it, but they've managed to get there now. Everton finishing as champions, Leicester, Hull, Southampton and West Brom all 20 points clear of the next team, but Watford in 8th have been overtaken by Tranmere. Watford really starting to struggle a bit now. These sort of teams are really going to find it difficult if they don't get out of non-league football soon, because they have been down there for some time. And if we look at their information, you can see they've got no estimated value. They are going to get hit with a points deduction next season because they are going to go into administration. In the Vanarama National League North, it has been won by Telford and Fired. There were no Premier League teams in here. Oh, Sunderland were in here. Sunderland have finished 15th. They are still in the bottom league tier of English football. They are not going to get out of it either on this basis. They have managed to sort their finances out after getting relegated and put into administration last year, but they are not going to get out of this league, I don't think, anytime soon. That is outrageous. What is wrong with this club? Let's have a look at their facilities. Still got great facilities, still at the 50,000 seater Stadium of Light, but they cannot get out of the Vanarama National League North. In the National League South, Burnley and Crystal Palace going up, Swansea finishing third. They are the only Premier League teams left down there. Swansea still got a big gap above the rest, so they will probably get out of this league soon, which could leave Sunderland as the only team left in the bottom tier. But they aren't the worst performing team. We may still need to remember Middlesbrough, who, if we can find them, are still in absolute obscurity. Now in the Southern Premier League, I think that's even lower than where they were before. I don't know what is going on with this club. They have nothing left. They're now estimated at £35 million with a loan debt of 27.5. They are not coming back up anytime soon. They were relegated in the first season. They've now been out of the game for 6 years, or 5 years rather, and I don't see them coming back at all. Now let's go to Newcastle again and we'll look at their competition screen to see how the big competitions went this year. FA Cup was won by Brentford, which is nice to see. I think it's the first time they've won that in a while, beating Norwich in the final. The EFL Cup won by Newcastle, extra silverware for them, beating Liverpool interestingly in the final. Also won the Community Shield, so they've done a treble this year at least. Now if we have a look at the Champions League, it has been won by Juventus. If we look at the stages, drop back a year and then go to the semi-finals. No English team in the semi-finals this year. If we look at the quarterfinals, no English team in the quarterfinals either. The first knockout round, Norwich were taken out and Newcastle were both taken out by German opposition in the knockout stages. So that is really disappointing. In the UEFA Cup, Europa League, whatever it's called, Europa Cup on here. This was won by Benfica. They managed to beat AC Milan. If we take a look at the semi-finals, no English teams there. Quarterfinals, no English teams there. Last 16, Sheffield Wednesday taken out by Sporting and Eastbourne Borough beaten by Anderlecht as well. So struggling in Europe this season, the English teams, but it's great for me to see that Newcastle's still top of the Premier League and not showing any signs of being caught anytime soon. 2 more Premier League teams will enter the Premier League next season, and it's interesting to see what the teams still struggling down in non-league football will be up to as well. So if you would like to see some more from this series, do drop a like on the video. Let me know in the comments how you want me to progress from this point, because we've been doing it 2 years at a time for a while. Do you still want me to go 2 years at a time? Do you want me to jump 5 years in the future? What would you like me to see? I think it's just about to get interesting with a few more Premier League clubs coming in, so next time I might do 2 more years and then we can maybe jump 5, 10, 15. But for now I think I will just go 2 more years in the future. But make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see how this experiment develops. But until next time, see ya.